If you want better relationships or healthier relationships, or maybe even a little bit of both, then you are in the right place today, my friend, because we're going to be talking about how to have healthier and better relationships, because this is an issue for a lot of people. I get lots of notes about this, about people talking about their relationships and how to have better relationships. I hear it in my Good For Me Facebook group that people talk about wanting to have better relationships, that they're feeling stuck and they don't know how to do it. And so we're going to talk about it. We are going to talk about several ways to have better relationships, little tweaks, little shifts that you can start doing right now that are going to start to make a big difference. So stay tuned, and you may even want to grab a pen and paper and write these ones down because they are keepers. If you're new to me, and this is the first time we're connecting, I am so glad that you are here. And if you are back again, I am so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for your support and for coming back and for being part of this community and for learning and growing together. But my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a master coach, a researcher, a speaker, and the creator of the Breakthrough Coaching Program. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I work to help heart-centered go-getter men and women break through worry, anxiety, and self-doubt so that they can get out of their heads, get into their lives, and love their lives. And you guys, relationships, they are a big deal. We all have them in some way, shape, or form in our lives, and we all need them. It's Alfred Adler, who is one of the forefathers of modern psychology. He is a contemporary of Freud, so pretty much everyone's heard of Sigmund Freud. Some of you may have heard of Alfred Adler. I've done a lot of studying of Adler's work because I really agree with a lot of his theories about human psychology and what we need and how we work and where our problems come from. And he said that human relationships, genuine human connection, is as essential to our survival as air and water. We are social beings. We are hardwired for connection, and we need those relationships, but life doesn't come with a manual. We aren't taught how to have healthy relationships. And if we grew up in families where healthy relationships weren't modeled to us, how to have healthy relationships, maybe we had parents who didn't even have a healthy relationship, or, our parents didn't teach us how to have healthy relationships, or maybe it was both. So whatever reason, if you're struggling with healthy relationships in your life right now, we're going to talk about several things. I think we have 7 that we're going to talk about that are going to make those shifts and help you to like your relationships more, feel better in your relationships, have more fulfilling, rewarding, healthy relationships. So let's get right into this. And the first one is, and this is a huge one, but we're going to talk, so some people say one thing and I'm going to say a bit of another thing. What we need to do, as you've probably heard this before, is to manage your expectations. Now, some people out there will say, don't have any expectations, and I'm going to call BS on that because you have to have some expectations. You can't have no expectations and expect to have a relationship. There is some level of expectation that you are going to be able to rely on people, that you're going to be able to trust people, that they are going to follow through and do what they say that they're going to do, that you're going to expect them to actually care about you, to want to be in the relationship. You have to have some expectations, but what many of us are doing is we are having way too high of expectations, that our expectations are kind of unachievable. And so we always feel like people are letting us down. And maybe for some of you, you don't even have that high of expectations and people are letting you down. And you know what they say? Make new friends. I say kind of tongue in cheek, but really taking a look at the people that you're around. And some of it is us. Some of us have such high expectations, and we're going to talk about communicating expectations in a minute, but really looking at what are your expectations of this relationship, because it can sometimes come down to, what am I expecting this person to be giving, and what are they offering? And I remember back when I was in my 20s, I was really one of my best friends who I just loved dearly. We had a bit of a dramatic relationship because my expectations of her were out of alignment with what she was offering. But I didn't see it that way. I always saw it as she doesn't give as much to the relationship. She doesn't care very much about me. I go out of my way for her all the time and she doesn't do it. And I always want to be with her and she doesn't seem to want to be with me as much as I want to be with her. And I would take it so personally. I'd get so hurt and I'd even talk to her about it. She's like, Julie, it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. I really like you. And, we'd have these dramatic conversations until I realized, and I took a step back, and it wasn't that because she didn't care about me, it was because she had a different idea of what she wanted from a friendship. She didn't want a friend that she was talking to every day and hanging out with all the time and making plans with and kind of really like that bosom buddy type friend where your lives are totally intertwined. And that's what I wanted. And so I was taking it personally and thinking that, there was something wrong with me or something wrong with her, what was going on, why she didn't want this. She just didn't want the same thing I wanted. So taking a step back and looking at what is this person offering? What do they want? And it doesn't mean that what I want doesn't matter, but really taking a second there. And if what they are offering is different from what you want, then you have two choices because you can't change them. You can't make them do anything any different. You can talk about it. You can make requests and you guys can see if you can come to some middle ground there, but you can't control somebody else. And so if what they're offering is not what you want, you can either choose to end the relationship or take some space for the relationship or not invest in the relationship, not have the relationship, or you can decide to shift your thinking and be okay with what they are offering. Oftentimes we get into trouble in relationships with what we're expecting is not what somebody else is offering, and then we get all upset about it, we take it personally, we feel all hurt, we feel all unimportant, instead of sometimes it's just that they want something different. So checking those expectations, looking at what they're offering, what I want, what do I want to do about it that doesn't involve them having to be or become something or someone else, because I can't make that happen. The next one, having healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are essential for healthy relationships. I don't actually think you can have a healthy relationship without healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries aren't about getting people to do something that we want them to do. It's about saying what's okay with us and what's not okay with us. And then if the person violates that, if they do something that's not okay with us, then we decide how we're going to deal with it. So boundaries are not, again, contrary to kind of popular teaching, boundaries are not about getting some people to do things the way that we want them to do. It's about making a request. So saying, this is what I would like, this is what I prefer. If you are going to come into my yard, these are the rules for how you got to treat my stuff. This is a metaphor. I'm not talking literally, although it could be literally. You don't want someone coming over to your house and eating food on your couch and wiping their hands on your couch cushions. Not that I've ever had that with a friend. Yes, I have. That was a boundary violation. It's not about getting them to do something different. It's about making a request, and then they get to decide whether or not they respect that request, and they can choose not to. They can absolutely choose not to. We can't, again, make anybody do anything. But based on their choice about what they choose to do or not to do, or how they treat us or decide to treat us or not to treat us, we can then decide what we're going to do with that. It's always up to us. That's their choice on how they treat us, and it's our choice on how we respond to that, what we do with that. If we need to take some space from the relationship, if that we need to remind them of our boundary, and if they continue to push that, then take some space from the relationship. If it means that we need to end the relationship altogether. Now, I'm not a huge fan of cutoffs. I'm a big fan of conversation and conflict resolution, but sometimes it's not possible. And again, some people are just not offering what we want. And so looking at what are they offering? What are they willing to do? Are they willing to respect my boundaries? And if not, then it's my choice to do what I need to do with that. Healthy boundaries are huge. We get to decide what's okay with us and what's not okay with us, and we get to communicate that, and then we get to decide what we do with it if that's not respected. The next thing, and I'm primarily talking to my girls here. I am talking to my women here because women, we are notorious for this, and we've got to stop it because it's not fair. If you have a need, a want, a preference, stop waiting for your partner or your best friends or anyone in your family to read your mind and know what you need, and then feel all hurt and bent out of shape and make it all dramatic if they can't read your mind, if they don't know what you need. You might think it's obvious, and it absolutely might be obvious to you, but if it's not obvious to them, then it's not helpful how obvious you think it is. If you don't communicate clearly what you want and need and what your expectations are, then they have no chance. And I hear so many women say this. And they say, if he really loved me, he would know what I needed. And again, I'm gonna call BS on that, because if you really loved him, you would tell him what you needed. You would set him up for success instead of waiting for him to fail and then getting all hurt and dramatic and upset about it and making it mean that he doesn't care because he can't read your mind. People think differently. Often men and women think differently. Different human beings think differently. You might even find this with your friends, that you are super thoughtful and you do all this stuff for them and you can't understand why they don't reciprocate it. Well, have you asked them to? Have you been really clear about what you would like? Or are you doing all this stuff and then kind of playing the victim by being like, nobody cares about me. No one ever does anything for me. No one goes out of their way for me the way that I do for them. So back to number one, are they willing to offer what you want, right? Are they offering the type of relationship that you expect or that you want? Or if they're not, okay, they're not. Or have you communicated that? Have you been really clear? And some people think, well, if I tell them and I tell them specifically, then it takes the romance out of it, or it takes the thoughtfulness out of it. I want them to just know. No, that's not fair. That is not fair. And you may have to tell them a few times. And yeah, it might feel contrived at first if you're like, I want flowers on my birthday, and I want chocolate on Easter, or I want you to cook every Friday night, or whatever that is, or I want you to make a big deal out of my birthday. And you have to actually be specific. What does a big deal mean to you? Because a big deal to somebody else might not be a big deal to you, and then they make a big deal about it and do things that they think are a big deal, but then you're like, that wasn't even a big deal. And so then you're creating more upset. You are creating the upset by having needs and having wants and having preferences and expecting people to read your mind. I'm calling you out on this because this is on you. Make it clear. And yes, maybe the first few times it feels contrived, but eventually, if you are clear, if you are specific, if you set people up for success, then they will start to get it. None of this expecting people to read our minds crap. It's not going to fly. It's not helping. And you need to stop if you're doing that. And you know if you are. The next one, speaking of meeting expectations, notice what they are doing. I think so often we spend so much time thinking about what people aren't doing, how people aren't meeting our expectations, how people are falling short of what we think they should do. And we're finding, and we're finding these nitpicky things. And we're finding the holes, we're finding the gaps, because for some of us, we have such high expectations that no one can ever really meet them. And so sometimes people just stop trying because they feel like, well, I could do a lot and it won't be good enough, or I could do nothing and it won't be good enough. Either way, the person, he or she, is going to be disappointed. And so I may as well just save the energy and not do anything. So if that's happening, then I'm going to say that that's on you as well. That if you start pointing out the things that people are doing well, then they're going to want to do more of that. If you start appreciating people, if you start recognizing people for the effort they are making, they are naturally going to want to do it more. And I've even had clients and students say this, well, I'm scared that if I start pointing out what they're doing, if I start giving them praise and recognition for what they are doing, they're going to think they're good and they're going to get lazy and they're going to stop doing it because they're going to think that now I'm happy and satisfied, they don't have to do anything else. And that's maybe in some cases that might be true, but I want to ask you, what do you respond better to? Do you respond better? Do you feel better and feel more motivated to do nice things for other people, to be thoughtful towards other people when they're always criticizing you or telling you how it's falling short, or kind of making little side remarks or passive aggressive comments about how it didn't quite meet the expectation? Or do you want to do things for someone who's like, thank you so much. That really meant a lot to me. I really appreciate that. That was amazing. I know how much work that took. I know that took some thoughtfulness. I know that took planning on your part, and I appreciate that. Instead of being like, oh, I said that I, needed a break, and, you're sending me to the spa downtown instead of on like a 3-day getaway to some resort. Oh, well, I said I needed a break. I meant I wanted the resort, but you only got me the spa. Instead of being like, thank you so much for thinking of me. And if I want to go to the spa for 3 days, then I have to make that clear. I want a break and I want to be sent to the spa. That's on me. That's on you if you're not communicating that. So recognizing the effort that people are making around you, you will be surprised that it will do the opposite of what you think, that it's going to make them lazy, and it will make them want to do more. Just think about it for yourself. What motivates you more? Criticism or praise? Being recognized or being called down? The next one, and this one is so simple, but it's so funny how we don't do it. We don't do it. And if you're not doing it. Listen. Really listen to people. There's this ancient First Nations wisdom that says we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak. How amazing is it when someone just listens to you, when they hold the space for you, when they pay attention, when they're interested in what you're saying and not jumping in or not getting distracted or not going onto their phone and not cutting you off mid-sentence. How good does it feel when someone is really interested in what you're saying, when they take interest, when they ask questions, when they make it so that you feel like you matter? How much do you like and appreciate people who do that? And for some of you, I know you're probably saying, like, I always do that for people. I always listen to them. I ask questions. I show interest, and they don't ever ask me anything back. They don't ever say, like, how are you doing? And they don't ever do it back to me. And that's okay, because some people aren't quite as aware. You're going to be the aware one. You're going to be the intentional one. You're going to be the thoughtful one. And not everybody is like that. Some people are distracted. They have other things going on. They sometimes forget to ask. And so again, back to asking for what you need, right? Because we're not going to just sit there and stew and get all resentful that someone's not doing what we expect them to do. Back to our expectations of asking for what we need. Being able to say once they're finished, hey, I'd like to tell you about my day. That's it. Just being able to say, I'd like to share something with you now. Do you have a few minutes now? Can we talk about some things that I'm thinking about, or some things that I'm going through, or something that I have on my mind? Just asking or telling them that now I'd like to talk. And most people in your life will be like, oh yeah, of course. And they might even feel a little bit embarrassed they forgot to ask. So asking for what you need, listening, really listening, and then also letting yourself talk or say that now you'd like to talk and you'd like to share, instead of waiting, getting bitter and resentful and hurt if they don't ask. The next one, check yourself. Before you do anything weird, when you are upset or hurt or frustrated with someone, check yourself in how you're communicating. And as much as possible, keeping that communication clean and clear and healthy. Not coming at people being passive aggressive or trying to like guilt trips. If you are upset about something, if someone has done or said something that has hurt you or upset you, addressing it in a respectful, responsible way. Keep it clean, keep it healthy, no hidden agenda, no trying to like make them feel bad or make them feel guilty or make them feel like a bad person or whatever it is. And this is such a huge one. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time, you guys. Sometimes it takes a little time to keep our communication clean and to be able to say what we're experiencing, what's going on with us, and the change that we would like to see without blaming them or making them out to be these like awful people or trying to make them feel bad or guilty, like I said. So learning how to do this, I do have a course that's called Speak and Feel Heard, and it really helps with learning how to communicate effectively and assertively, how to say what you want and think and need and feel, and how to communicate in really clean, healthy ways when there is conflict, when there is upset, when something has happened. So you can grab that. I'll put the link to that below. But clean communication is huge, because you know how icky it feels when someone comes at you and kind of lays everything on you, or tries to make you feel guilty, or tries to make you feel like you're a bad person or you're a thoughtless person, that all their problems are your fault or whatever it is. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't make you warm up to them. It doesn't make you feel really apologetic or remorseful. It makes you get kind of defensive. And it makes you be like, ugh, like that feels icky. Don't treat me that way. And so we get defensive. And so if we are doing that to other people, if we are not keeping the communication clean, we're often not getting the response that we want. And we are also not doing good things for the relationship, because no one wants to feel guilted or icky when it comes to dealing with things, when it comes to working things out, when it comes to resolving issues. Keep it clean. And like I say to my kids, keep it clean and classy. Although I talk about that when they're in the playground and they know that it means that just like be nice to the other kids and, don't play in the muck if you're wearing your nice clothes. Keep it clean and classy. And then our next one. And this is huge for relationships, and you might not be aware that you're doing this or not doing this. And this is when it comes to healthy boundaries, when it comes to having clear, clean communication, say yes when you want to. Say yes when you mean it, and no when you need to. So again, say yes only when you mean it. If you don't mean it, if you're saying yes, again, out of guilt or obligation or feeling like a bad person or selfish or whatever it is, or coerced, but you secretly or deep down inside, you don't want to do it and you're saying yes, then you are building resentment towards that person for making you say yes. But no one can make you say yes. So owning that, saying yes when you mean it, and no when you need to, letting yourself say no when you need to. And all those stories about being a bad, selfish, narcissistic or whatever person, if you ever say no, that's just kind of a load of crap. And those are just stories that you've taken on and beliefs that you've adopted, but it's just not true. And you need to deal with that and you need to work through that. But if you say yes when you don't mean it, again, you're going to build up the resentment and that anger. And so you say yes because you don't want to create any conflict or hurt anybody's feelings or upset anyone. You don't want to hurt them. So what you do is you build up the anger and the resentment, and then it ends up coming out in some way, in some aggressive or passive aggressive or some kind of unhealthy way. And that ends up harming the relationship. And so sometimes we need to hurt someone, right? We may need to hurt someone a little bit in order to prevent greater harm to the relationship. If you have a hard time saying no, get my free download, 25 ways to say no. This is going to help you learn some different ways in different situations, kind of warm you up to the whole healthy boundaries thing. So making sure you grab that download. It's free, and I'm going to put it in the description below. Which one of these are you going to start working on first? Which one of these really connected with you? Which one of these are you like, guilty? I need to work on this. I need to deal with this. I need to start doing this one differently for the sake of my best relationships, my most important relationships, and for the sake of my relationship with myself as well, so that I can feel good about how I'm showing up, I can feel empowered, and I can feel in charge of my own mind, emotions, wants, needs, and boundaries. Come and join my Facebook group if you haven't already, goodformegroup.com, full of heart-centered go-getter men and women who are kind, compassionate, supportive, and super encouraging. Like the video, share it out, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Take good care.